These are the hands of Japanese serial killer Tsutomu Miyazaki. He was born with a rare birth defect that caused his hand joints to be fused together, preventing him from being able to bend his wrists upwards. Two Mice Eating Cheese is the name of London's smallest statue, which commemorates two construction workers who died in 1862. They were scuffling over a missing sandwich that resulted in both of them falling off the scaffolding. Turns out it was just stolen by mice. The movie Jaws directly contributed to a surge in shark hunting and a massive drop in shark populations. Author Peter Benchley deeply regretted writing Jaws, saying, "Knowing what I know now, I could never write that book today. Sharks don't target human beings, and they certainly don't hold grudges." Today, sharks kill only around 10 humans per year, but humans kill around 11,000 sharks every hour. A 34-year-old man with ALS completely lost the ability to move anything, including his eyes. When a brain chip finally allowed him to communicate again, the first thing he said was, "I need a beer." Scientists just brought back an animal that had been extinct for over 10,000 years. A genetic engineering company called Colossal Biosciences have managed to bring back the direwolf by using advanced gene editing techniques, not to perfectly recreate the extinct species, but to mimic their traits in genetically modified gray wolves. The three wolf pups, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, are expected to grow significantly larger than modern gray wolves, eventually weighing over 150 pounds. The company claims their goal is to reintroduce these apex predators to areas where they once existed, hoping that their presence will help regulate prey populations and support healthier food chains. This also serves as a proof of concept for future de-extinction projects such as the woolly mammoth or the dodo bird. However, it's no surprise that this de-extinction has sparked a serious debate about whether such projects should even be allowed in the first place because, well, we all know where this goes. In 2006, Ray Rivera vanished after receiving a sudden phone call and rushing out of his Baltimore home. Over a week later, his body was found in a locked conference room at the Belvedere Hotel, having somehow crashed through the roof from above. The hole he fell through was bizarrely placed, far too distant from any ledge to be reached by a typical jump, leading some to believe he may have been thrown off the roof or pushed from a higher level of the building. Even stranger, a cryptic note filled with movie references and secret society names was discovered taped behind his computer. The eerie case still remains officially unsolved. Just recently, paranormal investigator Dan Rivera was found dead in his hotel room while on the Devils on the Run tour in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Best known for touring with the infamous Annabelle doll from The Conjuring, the 54-year-old had spent years investigating haunted locations and was a prominent figure in the New England Society for Psychic Research. His sudden death with no signs of foul play has fueled eerie speculation, given his close proximity to one of the world's most notorious possessed objects. As of now, the cause of death remains unknown, as Rivera's mysterious end has only deepened the legend surrounding Annabelle. He went to a high school party and never returned home. In May of 2022, tensions erupted between two groups of teens at a house party in Shelton, Connecticut. After an initial fight broke out at one location, the crowd dispersed, only for a second gathering to form later that night on Laurel Glen Drive. Among those who showed up was 16-year-old Raul Valley, who later admitted to arming himself with a knife before returning with his friends to confront the larger group. He claimed he acted in self-defense, saying he felt threatened and outnumbered when a brawl broke out again. During the chaos, Raul allegedly stabbed 4 teenagers, claiming he feared that his life was in danger, though some questioned the extent of his injuries based on the photos presented in court. According to witness testimony, as the fighting began to die down, Valley allegedly lunged at 17-year-old Fairfield Prep student Jimmy McGrath, who prosecutors described as an innocent bystander, fatally stabbing him in the chest as he was backing away. Valley later rejected a 40-year plea deal and took the case to trial in July of 2025. He was acquitted of murder, intentional manslaughter, and intentional assault, but the jury deadlocked 11-1 on reckless manslaughter, resulting in a partial mistrial. Prosecutors are now pursuing a retrial on those unresolved charges. In the aftermath, a wave of support for Raul flooded social media, often ignoring or downplaying the death of Jimmy altogether. Posts portraying Valley as the real victim while blaming Jimmy simply for being there quickly circulated, despite numerous witness accounts stating Jimmy had no involvement in the conflict. Remembered as a standout lacrosse player, Jimmy was the only teen who lost his life that night, a senseless tragedy that left a hole in the town he grew up in. His death remains a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly teenage conflict can result in the loss of an innocent life, as those closest to him are still waiting for true accountability. 2007, Miles Teller narrowly survived a horrific car crash when the vehicle he was inside of flipped 8 times at nearly 80 miles per hour, ejecting him through a window and flinging his body over 30 feet. He was found unconscious and covered in blood, with deep facial gashes and a broken wrist, injuries that required years of painful laser treatments. As if that weren't enough, within the next year, Miles lost 2 of his closest friends in separate vehicle accidents just weeks apart. One was killed in a motorcycle crash and the other in a car accident, both devastating losses that deeply affected Teller in his early 20s. As a result, the actor developed a profound sense of gratitude and now takes nothing for granted, an outlook that deeply influences both his personal life and career. In 1992, Annette Herfkens was the sole survivor of a plane crash that killed all 30 others on board, including her fiancé. The aircraft went down in the remote Vietnamese jungle just 50 minutes into the flight. Trapped inside the mangled wreckage with a collapsed lung, broken ribs, and surrounded by rotting corpses, she was too injured to leave the crash site. For 8 days, she fought to stay alive by drinking rainwater as the stench of death closed in. As her body weakened, she even considered cannibalizing the bodies around her, but didn't have the strength for it. When rescuers finally arrived, she was barely conscious, buried in wreckage and decay next to the corpse of the love of her life, but she eventually made a full recovery. 4 planes were hijacked on 9/11, but few people know there was almost a 5th. United Flight 23, bound for Los Angeles, was already taxiing for takeoff at JFK when the FAA suddenly grounded all aircraft after the Twin Towers were struck. Among the passengers were several men who immediately raised red flags with the crew. Flight attendants later said they were asking odd questions about the flight, demanding to move into first class, and even tried to open the cabin door before takeoff. When the grounding order came, the men reportedly refused to deplane at first, sitting in eerie silence while the other passengers panicked. Even more suspicious, after the flight was emptied, security discovered box cutters hidden in the seatbacks and food stashed under the seats, items disturbingly similar to those used by the 9/11 hijackers. Investigators came to believe Flight 23 was meant to be part of the coordinated plot, possibly targeting the White House or another iconic landmark. But because of the grounding order, the plane never left the runway, leaving behind one of the most chilling what-ifs of 9/11. After becoming the most famous child star in the world through Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin spent years spiraling out of the spotlight. He became trapped in a bitter legal battle with his parents over control of his fortune, and later admitted to struggling with drugs and heavy drinking, while tabloids became obsessed with photos of his alarmingly thin appearance, constantly pushing rumors that he was addicted to heroin or even close to death, claims he consistently denied. For years, the former child star became more known for looking sick and gaunt than for the blockbuster movies that made him an icon. And in 2017, he met Brenda Song, someone who could relate to his struggles that stemmed from child acting. Over the following years, Culkin appeared significantly healthier and more stable, eventually crediting Brenda and their family life with giving him purpose again. The two later had children together, and during his Hollywood Walk of Fame speech, he told her, "You've given me all my purpose again. You've given me family." In 2014, comedian Tracy Morgan was critically injured in a car crash on the New Jersey Turnpike when a Walmart tractor-trailer suddenly slammed into his limo van. The collision killed his close friend and fellow comedian James McNair and left Morgan with a broken femur, broken ribs, broken nose, and a traumatic brain injury. Doctors initially feared he might not survive, and he remained in a coma for over a week. The truck driver had reportedly been awake for more than 24 hours, prompting Morgan to sue Walmart for negligence. The company ultimately settled the lawsuit outside of court, and Tracy has publicly forgiven the driver. In 1980, a man named John Burgess, who had lost over $750,000 while gambling, attempted to extort money from Harvey's Resort Hotel in Nevada by planting one of the most sophisticated homemade bombs the FBI had ever seen. Disguised as a copy machine and weighing over 1,000 pounds, the device was placed on the second floor of the casino along with a ransom note demanding $3 million. The FBI evacuated the building and spent hours trying to disarm the bomb, but when they attempted to disable it using a controlled charge, the entire device detonated. The explosion damaged much of the building and caused over $18 million in damage, but miraculously no one was killed. Burgess was later arrested, convicted, and died while in prison. On July 17, 2025, Felix Baumgartner, the daredevil who once broke the sound barrier by jumping from the edge of space, was killed in a tragic paragliding crash in Italy at the age of 56. While piloting a motorized paraglider near a seaside resort, he reportedly may have suffered a cardiac event mid-air, causing the craft to spiral out of control before slamming into the hotel's pool area. The impact killed him instantly and injured a hotel worker with flying debris, sending her to the hospital with neck trauma, but she appears to be okay. Witnesses described a terrifying boom as the glider hit, followed by screams from stunned vacationers. Paramedics arrived quickly but were unable to revive him, and guests at the hotel were left stunned as rescue workers covered his body with a tarp near the wreckage. Hours before the fatal crash, he posted an Instagram story with the caption, "Too much wind," his eerie final message before the legendary thrill-seeker met a brutal end while doing what he loved. 31-year-old physician Dr. Sneha Ann Phillip vanished on September 10, 2001, just one day before the 9/11 attacks. Surveillance footage last showed her shopping at a department store near her Manhattan residence, but she was never seen again. Her family believes she rushed to Ground Zero to help victims and died in the chaos, but there's no official record or eyewitness account placing her there. Investigators also uncovered personal and professional turmoil in her life, leading to speculation that she may have used the disaster to disappear intentionally or was possibly even murdered. Her remains were never found, but in 2008, a judge ruled she likely perished in the attacks, officially adding her to the list of 9/11 victims despite the lack of definitive evidence confirming her death. Aaliyah's song "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number" was written and produced by R. Kelly, and lyrically centers around a young girl wanting to be with an older man. At the time, R. Kelly was 27 and Aaliyah was just 15. The two secretly and illegally married in 1994 using a falsified ID that listed her age as 18. When her family found out, the marriage was quickly annulled in early 1995. Afterwards, Aaliyah cut all personal and professional ties with R. Kelly and never worked with him again. The song and the marriage later took on a disturbing new light, foreshadowing the predatory behavior that R. Kelly would eventually be exposed and convicted for. In June of 2011, Jackass star Ryan Dunn left a bar in Pennsylvania in his Porsche 911 GT3 after posting a photo of himself drinking just hours earlier. Minutes later, he was dead. The car was obliterated after slamming into a tree at over 130 miles per hour, killing both he and his passenger, newlywed Navy veteran Zachary Hartwell. The wreckage was so violent that the engine flew more than 100 feet from the car, and the impact tore the vehicle into two burning sections. The death was eerily foreshadowed. A year earlier, Dunn played a man killed in a drunken crash in the film Living Will. Friends had joked that his Porsche was a widowmaker that he'd eventually wrap around a tree, and in a 2002 interview, he said he'd probably die in a ridiculous way. The loss sent Bam Margera, Dunn's best friend, into a years-long spiral of alcoholism, depression, and multiple rehab stints, marking the start of his personal decline. The death left the Jackass crew devastated and sparked ongoing debates about drunk driving in the entertainment world. And Bilzerian, once dubbed the king of Instagram, built his online image around guns, women, and money, but his real-life track record is much darker. He's been sued for tossing an adult film actress off a roof and shattering her foot, allegedly kicked a woman in the face during a nightclub brawl, and was arrested on bomb-making charges after causing an open fire in Nevada. He also suffered 2 heart attacks before the age of 28, reportedly triggered by a cocktail of drugs including cocaine, ecstasy, and Viagra taken during non-stop parties. In interviews, he's admitted to nearly dying multiple times from drug overdoses and claims his heart had temporarily stopped at least once. He was present during the 2017 Las Vegas mass shooting, where he fled the scene, returned to film bodies, and bizarrely asked police for a gun. On the business front, his company Ignite faced financial scrutiny as he sued his own father over alleged mismanagement tied to a $180 million fraud case. Today, Bilzerian lives in relative obscurity compared to his peak fame, his story now seen by many as proof that money, fame, and indulgence don't always add up to a perfect life. In February of 1978, 5 friends from Yuba City, California, all with mild mental disabilities or psychiatric conditions, went to watch a college basketball game in Chico and never returned home. The next day, their Mercury Montego was found abandoned on a remote snowy mountain road in the Plumas National Forest. The car wasn't stuck by any means. It was perfectly drivable, had a quarter tank of gas, and showed no signs of mechanical trouble. The keys were gone, and it was parked as if someone expected to come back. It wasn't until 4 months later when melting snow finally revealed the first few bodies. 3 of the men's corpses were found scattered in the forest, between the car and a Forest Service trailer 19 miles away. Inside that trailer laid the 4th man, Ted Weyer, wrapped in sheets and emaciated to just 120 pounds. He had grown a full beard, suggesting he had survived for weeks, but he starved to death, surrounded by enough canned food to last all 5 men more than a year. The food had been untouched except for a few open tins, and the propane tank outside had never been used to heat the trailer. The fifth man, Gary Mathias, was simply gone. Only his tennis shoes were found near Weir's body, implying he had left the trailer completely barefoot in deep snow. No other trace of him has ever been found. Why they abandoned the warm-stocked cabin, why they split up, and why they went up the mountain in the first place, in the opposite direction from home, all remain a mystery. Some believe they were chased, others think they panicked after a wrong turn, and some suspect Mathias' history of schizophrenia may have played a role. But after nearly 50 years, the case still remains unsolved. Ezra Miller has a long track record of disturbingly erratic and violent behavior that has deeply tarnished his public image. In 2020, Miller was caught on video choking a woman and throwing her to the ground outside of a bar in Iceland, an act the victim later confirmed was not staged. In 2022, he was arrested multiple times in Hawaii for aggressive outbursts, including lunging at patrons in a karaoke bar and throwing a chair that struck a woman in the head. That same year, Miller was accused of grooming and using drugs, intimidation, and emotional manipulation to control her. He then hosted a woman and her children inside a home in Vermont that was allegedly filled with unattended firearms and marijuana, where one toddler reportedly nearly choked on a bullet. Reports have also surfaced of Miller claiming to be a messianic figure, identifying as both Jesus and the devil. With his career now in shambles, Miller has acknowledged his suffering from complex mental health issues. Jeremy Renner's 15,000-pound snowplow crushed his body with such force that he later recalled hearing the crunching of his own bones. The actor sustained 38 broken bones, a collapsed lung, severe cranial trauma, and required extensive reconstruction with metal plates to his chest, legs, and face. Among the most horrifying details he later revealed was that the impact had dislodged his left eyeball so severely that he could see it sticking out of his head with his right eye. A poor spider that was posthumously named Lawrence got stuck in this glass and couldn't climb up the smooth surface, so it apparently tried to web its way to the top until its silk ran out and it eventually perished. In 2003, 28-year-old British marine biologist Kirsty Brown was snorkeling off the coast of Antarctica when a massive leopard seal lunged from below, clamping onto her head. The powerful predator dragged her deep underwater, then repeatedly surged up and down through the water column in a torturous manner, shaking her violently before releasing her lifeless body. It was the first recorded fatal leopard seal attack on a human. Photographer Sam Davis captured the incredible moment a snake eel burst out from a heron's stomach while the bird was still flying, having chewed its way through the heron's throat using its pointed tail. Both animals were likely fatally injured. In February of 2021, a 45-year-old man named Thangula Satish died in India after his rooster, armed with a 3-inch blade for an illegal cockfight, slashed his groin as it tried to escape, severing a major artery. The rooster was briefly detained at a police station for potential evidence before being transferred to a farm. In 1982, renowned actor Vic Morrow and child actors Micah Din Lee and Renee Chen were killed on the set of Twilight Zone the movie when a helicopter malfunctioned and crashed during a stunt, decapitating both Morrow and Micah while crushing Renee. The scene involved illegal child labor in unsafe conditions, sparking a high-profile trial against director John Landis, who was ultimately acquitted. The haunting photo on the right shows 7-year-old Renee's grandfather collapsing in grief at her funeral, questioning how this could have possibly happened to his talented young granddaughter. The 1897 Battle of Sarigari is considered to be one of the greatest final stands in history. Just 21 soldiers of the Sikh regiment fought an army of 10,000 Afghans and killed more than 600 of them before being defeated. In Florida, 75-year-old exotic animal enthusiast Marvin Hajos was fatally mauled by his pet cassowary, one of the most dangerous birds on the planet. Authorities believe he tripped and fell near the bird, triggering an aggressive response. The cassowary lashed out with its powerful legs, using its razor-sharp inner claws to slash Marvin's neck and torso apart. The man who had raised exotic animals for decades died en route to the hospital. Tom Cruise once sued a gay adult star for $10 million after the man claimed they had an affair. The actor Chad Slater eventually admitted he made the whole thing up and defaulted on the lawsuit, owing Cruise millions he'd never pay. Cruise has also sued multiple publications over similar claims about his sexuality, aggressively shutting down rumors for decades. In 2009, a California woman sued the makers of Captain Crunch, claiming she'd been misled into believing that Crunch berries were real fruit. After eating the cereal for 4 years, she discovered they were just brightly colored cornballs and accused the company of false advertising. The court quickly dismissed the case, ruling that no reasonable consumer would think crunch berries were real, especially since no such fruit exists. In 1981, a 9-year-old girl's family sued Disneyland after claiming that Winnie the Pooh punched her in the face so hard that it caused brain damage. The case took a bizarre turn when the actor in the costume appeared in court fully suited up and demonstrated that due to the restrictive arms of the outfit, hitting anyone was physically impossible. A man who was struck and killed by a metro train in Illinois had his dismembered body parts fly off and injure a nearby woman. She later sued his estate, arguing that by being stupid enough to get hit by a train, he was responsible for the injuries she sustained from his flying limbs. In 2016, Maze Runner star Dylan O'Brien was nearly killed during a stunt gone horribly wrong. While filming a scene involving 2 moving vehicles, he was violently dragged and run over, suffering a severe concussion, facial fractures, and brain damage. Production was shut down for nearly a year as he battled through physical and psychological recovery. At one point, O'Brien admitted he didn't know if he'd survive, let alone act again, saying he felt like a completely different person following the accident. Jamestown Governor John Ratcliffe, the real-life inspiration for the villain in Disney's Pocahontas, died horrifically in 1609. After being tricked and lured into an ambush by the Powhatan tribe, he was captured alive while most of his men were slaughtered. Colonial reports claimed Powhatan women skinned him alive using sharpened mussel shells, starting with his body and saving his face for last so that he'd remain conscious. They tossed strips of his flesh into a fire as he watched, then tied his fully skinned body to a stake and burned him alive, his screams echoing through the woods as a warning to any other Englishmen who dared to cross the Powhatan. Known for his roles in Weird Science, Titanic, and Twister, in 2017, actor Bill Paxton underwent heart surgery to repair an aortic aneurysm and replace a valve, a procedure that his family later claimed was high-risk, unconventional, and perhaps not even necessary. The surgeon, Dr. Ali Koinazad, had allegedly been warned by the hospital for his poor judgment in past cases, but he still performed the operation. According to the lawsuit, Paxton was never properly informed of the risks involved or the surgeon's history. In the days following the procedure, Paxton initially appeared to be recovering well and even spoke with his family. But without proper monitoring, and with the surgeon having left the hospital, complications soon arose, including internal bleeding, cardiac instability, and worsening organ function. Despite his declining condition, no adequate care was administered in time. Paxton ultimately suffered a massive stroke and died shortly afterwards, in what his family described as a preventable cascade of medical negligence. There were countless serious warning signs leading up to the implosion of the OceanGate Titan submersible. Experts repeatedly flagged the vessel's experimental design, particularly its carbon fiber hull, which is prone to microscopic weaknesses under deep-sea pressure. Former OceanGate employees raised alarms about structural integrity, previous dive malfunctions, the fact that the sub's navigation system relied on a modded Xbox controller, and over 100 documented equipment issues, including a 2022 incident where passengers heard alarming cracking sounds as the pressure increased. But despite this, OceanGate's CEO Stockton Rush pushed forward, publicly dismissing regulation as a barrier to innovation. In fact, the warning signs were so clearly numerous that after the implosion, many have speculated that Rush may have, citing his repeated disregard for safety warnings and his presence on board during the fatal dive, though no evidence has officially confirmed this theory. Actor Daniel Hovels accidentally slit his own throat on stage during a 2008 theatrical performance after his prop knife was somehow switched out for a real one. The audience initially thought it was all just an elaborate special effect. The blade had just barely missed Hovels' carotid artery, but he was back on stage the next day. The leading cause of death for pregnant and postpartum women in America is homicide. This is often driven by partner violence that is escalated or triggered by the pregnancy, stemming from jealousy, fear of responsibility, and financial stress. In 2014, a crematorium in Virginia caught fire during the cremation of a 500-pound body. The excessive body fat caused the furnace to overheat, igniting the building's roof. A Florida musician known as Prince Midnight constructed a fully functional electric guitar he dubbed the Skelecaster, using the skeletal remains of his deceased Uncle Philip. Philip had donated his skeleton to a medical college in Greece, but after 2 decades, the school no longer had any use for them, so the remains were returned to his family. Prince Midnight decided to honor his uncle, who introduced him to heavy metal music, by turning his ribcage, spinal column, and pelvis into a guitar. In 2002, New York City bartender Sean Doyle was out drinking with his friend Michael Wright, when a drunken argument suddenly broke out after Wright accused Doyle of flirting with his girlfriend. In a fit of rage, Wright threw Doyle down an open manhole and he immediately started screaming in agony from below. The shaft led down to a steam tunnel where a ruptured vent had caused the water temperature to reach an estimated 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Doyle survived the fall and was pleading for help while trapped in the boiling water, but the heat and steam were far too intense for rescuers to reach him. Witnesses reported hearing his screams echoing through the streets like a whistling tea kettle, then abruptly stopping. His body was finally recovered 4 hours later, and the medical examiner later described the scene as one of the worst she'd ever seen. The metal of his belt buckle had partially fused with his pelvis, and steam had filled up his lungs until they completely ruptured. His skin had completely peeled away, and his organs were essentially steamed like a lobster. This photo, taken in 1995, shows a young boy carrying his dog while crossing the infamous Sniper Alley in Bosnia. During a 4-year-long siege of the capital, Serbian snipers targeted civilians to instill terror among the population. The siege resulted in the deaths of over 11,500 people, including more than 1,600 children, and left tens of thousands wounded, while riding bikes, fetching water, or simply staring out the window, turning daily life into a death lottery. The boy's fate after this photograph was taken remains unknown. In 1994, British Parliament member Stephen Milligan was found dead in his London home under bizarre and scandalous circumstances. His body was partially dressed in women's lingerie with a plastic bag over his head, a cord around his neck, and a slice of orange in his mouth. His death was ruled as accidental, likely the result of autoerotic asphyxiation. Around 5000 BC, a man sat down in the harsh climate of Chile's Atacama Desert and has remained in that position ever since. The extreme dryness of the region naturally mummified the remains, leaving the skin, hair, and clothing astonishingly intact after more than 7,000 years. In other words, he's been chilly in there for a long time. Karl Alfalfa Switzer, the former child star of Our Gang, was shot and killed in 1959 during a dispute over a cash reward related to a lost hunting dog. After finding and returning the dog, Switzer demanded $50 from the dog's owner, Moses Stiltz, resulting in a heated argument at Stiltz's home. Alfalfa allegedly struck Stiltz with a clock, prompting Stiltz to grab his revolver and shoot Alfalfa in the groin, which he eventually bled out from. While Stiltz claimed self-defense, saying Alfalfa threatened him with a knife, a witness later stated that the actor was leaving when he was shot. Despite conflicting accounts, the killing was ruled justifiable and Stiltz was never charged. In 2005, Kenneth Pinion, a renowned Boeing engineer known online as Mr. Hands, died after engaging in receptive intercourse with a stallion on a Washington farm, an act that was recorded by a friend. The incident caused a fatal perforation in his colon, and he was dropped off at a local hospital where he died shortly afterwards. As a direct result, the state passed a law in 2006 criminalizing both bestiality and the creation of such videos. According to David Bowie's ex-wife Angela, she once walked in on David and Mick Jagger naked in bed together after a long night of partying. Angela took it as clear evidence of a sexual encounter, though neither Bowie nor Jagger ever confirmed it. Jagger dismissed the rumor as rubbish, while Bowie avoided commenting on it altogether. In the late 1800s, long before the invention of discrete vibrators, early models were massive mechanical contraptions powered by steam, hand cranks, or foot pedals. These devices were used by doctors to treat what was then diagnosed as female hysteria, a vague and outdated condition believed to cause anxiety, irritability, and sexual frustration. Rock Bitch, a provocative all-women British rock band infamous for their wildly sexualized live shows, had a notorious ritual during their concerts. They'd hurl a golden condom into the crowd, and whoever caught it, regardless of gender, was chosen to join them backstage for a night of uninhibited sexual escapades with the band. A 2003 study found that roughly 1 in 200 men globally share a nearly identical Y chromosome, all tracing back to one common male ancestor who lived about 800 years ago in the Mongol Empire region. The researchers linked this genetic legacy to Genghis Khan, giving the timing, geography, and his notorious reputation for spreading his seed like wildfire across his vast empire. Christina Formella, a 30-year-old special ed teacher and soccer coach at a high school in Illinois, is facing 55 felony charges tied to alleged misconduct with a student that reportedly began when he was just... Authorities claim the inappropriate relationship lasted nearly 2 years and involved over 50 encounters, many occurring on school grounds during class hours, and some at the teacher's own home while her husband was away. The case began after the student's mother found concerning messages on the boy's phone, prompting Formella's arrest in March of 2025. Investigators later uncovered writings where Formella accused the student of cheating on her and even mentioned plans to take her husband's money and disappear. But despite these allegations, her husband has continued to stand by her, even accompanying her to court appearances while holding her hand. Formella has pleaded not guilty to her charges and is out on bond under strict conditions. If convicted, she faces up to 60 years in prison.